Today we have an absolute treat here with us today in the studio, Brandon Fugal. I'm really excited to have him on the show. We've known each other for quite some time. Before we dive in, I want to give a quick bio on Brandon. So Brandon is a prominent business leader and recognized as a real estate expert nationwide. He is a previous EY Entrepreneur of the Year award winner and currently holds the position of chairman and co-owner of Colliers International in Utah, one of the leading commercial real estate firms in the world. Before merging and partnering with Colliers, Brandon was co-founder and owner of Coldwell Banker Commercial Advisors, which he grew to 30 offices in 11 states and where he was recognized as the #1 agent globally. In addition to his real estate endeavors, Brandon is an active entrepreneur and investor, co-founding and leading multiple companies, and he is also the star and executive producer of one of the most popular shows on the History Channel and Netflix, The Secret of Skinwalker Ranch. So I consider you, Brandon, like the most interesting man in the world. So welcome to the show.
I'm flattered, and it's a privilege to be with you today.
Absolutely.
And to be able to catch up and visit. We've had the great opportunity of actually working on transactions, closing deals together in the past, which kind of frames this podcast in an interesting light. I don't know that most of your guests have actually closed transactions with you, but I've had that honor, and it's good to be with you today. Yeah,
you as well. And it has been so fun to get to know you in that setting, from weekly calls, talking through deals, and seeing you in the weeds. Because I think a lot of people see you on the show and on magazines and on billboards, but they don't have the opportunity to get to know you. So it's been really fun, and I'm glad we could do this.
Most people don't realize that I'm in the trenches all day, every day, and I am actively engaged in working with entrepreneurs, developers, and key decision makers, hour by hour.
Totally. And that was surprising to me when you would jump on these calls each and every week, and we're talking about leases down in Provo, for 5,000 square feet, and to see you take that time and be that involved, it's pretty incredible.
Well, even physically to tour with those executives, I take a very personal interest.
Absolutely.
In the projects that we represent, and to have my name associated with the projects and my resources allocated to the success of those projects is important to me. And I think engagement, actual physical, personal engagement, is key, more now than ever.
100%. Well, I want to dive into all of that, Brandon, but before we jump in, I'd love to give the listeners an idea of kind of your background. And I think one question I've always asked my guests is, what should we understand about your upbringing to really understand who you are today, and how that kind of came about?
Good question. My greatest mentor was my father. I was very lucky. I hit the parent lottery. Have great parents. Grew up in Pleasant Grove. I'm fifth generation Pleasant Grove here in Utah County, the oldest of 4 boys. And growing up in small town USA, the equivalent of Stranger Things for real, if you're familiar with that, that program. I mean, in 1985, I was 12 years old, riding my bike and hanging out with my friends, and had a similar upbringing. That's, to a degree, a proper reflection of my childhood upbringing. I was influenced as a child of the 80s by Steven Spielberg, George Lucas, James Cameron, a host of others, and a product of that time period. I was taught to have a work ethic from very young. In fact, my entire teenage years, I had jobs working in construction.
Wow.
Was a ditch digger, literally.
Wow. Yeah.
Growing up as a teenager, worked out on construction crews. In fact, my father sent me off to work out of town as I was just entering high school on construction crews, working from dawn to dusk, heavy labor, and learned not only the value of hard work, but how to relate to people, how to truly respect people from all walks of life.
That's great.
That work in that realm. I was an Eagle Scout.
Nice.
Very proud of my association with the scouting program, even though there have been some changes in recent years. That experience was formative. Yeah. And I have kept the same dear friends since my elementary school days to this day.
Wow.
I have the same best friend that I've had since 5th grade. We are now business partners and collaborators together. He's been on my show as an expert radiation oncologist.
Wow.
And we've started a scientific device venture, and I've kept those relationships close. What I've learned in my career and my life is that the most important thing is really relationships.
Absolutely.
And transactions come and go. Relationships are most important and priceless. By the time I was a junior and senior in high school, I was obsessed with business. That was triggered in 8th grade by being introduced to a book called Iacocca, which was the autobiography of the great automotive icon, Lee Iacocca, who was the former president of Ford Motor Company, ended up being famously fired by Henry Ford, only to be hired by Chrysler Corporation and reviving Chrysler Corporation from financial ruin, and was the father of the American Mustang, and we can thank him for that. We can blame him for the minivan as well. But reading about him, reading his autobiography in 8th grade and junior high, triggered in me an interest and a love of business and trying to determine who the key players are that are shaping our world and what motivates them, what are their stories. So by the time I'm a junior and senior in high school, I have my own subscriptions to the Wall Street Journal and Business Week.
Nice.
And start looking at what career path would afford me the opportunity to work with the captains of industry. By the time I'm entering college, I had a scholarship to what is now Utah Valley University. I was hell-bent on working full-time in an occupation that would give me that privilege of working with people potentially that I was reading about in the business journals and whatnot. Commercial real estate provided that resource, that conduit into the business world. At age 18, coming out of high school, you were too young to have your Series 7 license and go into securities brokerage, and the educational prerequisites and barriers to entry relative to law, banking, and a host of other occupations really helped steer me toward commercial real estate as an ideal way of engaging with the business community and those entrepreneurs and professionals that are shaping our world. I worked to build a proprietary database during that first year as an 18-year-old right out of high school, working full-time, taking a full load. I think I had 17 credit hours I was taking. And really focusing on developing proprietary market intelligence and building a database that I could use to not only better manage my time, but identify who the most likely clients would be or prospects to assist with their commercial real estate needs. That contact management database was critical in the formation of my platform, my career, and later proved to be invaluable. As I turned 19, I prepared to go on a mission for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
Great.
And I had a whole list of transactions in progress. In fact, it just put an office complex under contract right before entering the Mission Training Center, as well as kicking off a number of other transactions when when I launched my mission. And it's funny, my first big deals actually closed while I was a greenie, as they say early on my mission at age 19. I had a brick phone, with one of those fixed antennas that is much like what you'd see Gordon Gekko using on the classic movie Wall Street.
Yeah.
And not only did I close some of my first big deals while I was a missionary, I bought my first Armani suit in the mission field when I was on a bike, and saw some of the fruits of my labors come forward.
So in between teaching people about the gospel, you're closing on transactions.
At least periodically following up to ensure that the transactions that were under contract back home in Salt Lake City were coming to fruition and being closed successfully. That's awesome. It was an interesting, fun start to my career. It was also very frustrating. I won't kid you. The commercial real estate is a very challenging career path because the sales cycle associated with transacting business can be very long.
Yes.
From months at the shortest to years before actually seeing compensation and seeing transactions come together.
Yeah.
When I got home from my mission, literally the day after, I jumped right back in up in Salt Lake, didn't take a day off, and lit up that database in order to really update it and jump right back into the market head first. The world had changed significantly during that period of time. Bill Clinton had been elected, and there were political shifts that were occurring, but also we were coming out of a recession.
Okay.
And I had to re-educate myself as it relates to the data and the economy and where things were headed. I love the fact that commercial real estate touches every sector of the economy.
Yeah.
Anyone who is in business has to have a real estate strategy. And the ability to work with those businesses, those entrepreneurs at every stage of their growth, whether they're a scrappy startup in the garage stage or a Fortune 500 company that is establishing office presence in other markets, it's fun to be touching those sectors, financial services, software, technology, life science, manufacturing, aerospace, defense. We have a very vibrant aerospace and defense sector here in Utah with Hill Air Force Base that also benefits from a composites industry that is world class. And to be able to work with companies, with enterprises in all of those sectors, provides one with a unique perspective.
Absolutely.
Both macroeconomically, from a 10,000-foot view to literally being right there, boots on the ground, in the trenches with these companies as they are assessing their position in the market and crafting their real estate strategies moving forward. And the thing that excited me most was the opportunity to add value, to help people develop their strategic roadmap and their planning for the future. And to help add value to that process and help identify not only cost savings, but in some cases the ability to build wealth and momentum by leveraging their commercial real estate requirements or facilities planning.
And I think a lot of business owners underestimate that real estate strategy within their business, because I know guys who were not represented by a broker or somebody who's a real estate expert who overpay significantly for a lease or for a building or try to put land together, and it's not the easiest process. And so having somebody who knows what they're doing and can help facilitate that is extremely important.
It's a no-brainer. I mean, you don't want to be your own attorney. You'd never think of going into a legal battle without having legal counsel. If you're dealing with complex tax planning strategies, you wouldn't think of doing so without having a CPA, an accountant, and consultant. And the same thing holds true relative to real estate and commercial real estate, it is absolutely critical to have a trusted advisor to help you navigate that path, regardless of what stage of growth or development your company or enterprise is in.
Yep, 100%. I agree. So, okay, so you get back from your mission, you're getting back, pounding the pavement. So from there, how did you go from 21-year-old Brandon Fugal to merging with Colliers International and becoming the co-chairman? I know that's probably a lot within that time frame that occurred.
It was a dynamic trajectory. By the time I was 25, the non-compete had run out between what is known as CBRE and the parent company of Coldwell Banker Corporation. Coldwell Banker Commercial was one of the oldest, if not the oldest, commercial real estate name in the United States, and there had been a non-compete for a number of years that had concluded. There was an opportunity to secure the franchise in Utah and launch the Coldwell Banker Commercial name anew here. And I left a very prominent firm to co-found Coldwell Banker Commercial's Utah presence. Brought a number of people with me. In fact, my graphics designer that has been with me since I was 22 came first, was employee number one. He's still with me to this day and is the director of graphics for Colliers here in Utah. And I had the great privilege of building a commercial real estate enterprise here in Utah with multiple offices, starting at age 25 in 1998. At a time when Silicon Slopes was just forming, when the technology sector here in Utah was starting to really emerge on the national stage. We had such greats as Novell, WordPerfect Corporation, Evans and Sutherland, and a host of other giants at the time that ended up inspiring and contributing to so much other activity, entrepreneurial activity, and spin-off growth. And I was fortunate to be working in the middle of that. Companies like Ancestry.com that was making the leap from being a publisher of a periodical for genealogists to having a massive online presence, and seeing them go from a couple of thousand square feet and a dozen employees to, ultimately hundreds of thousands of square feet. And being one of the great companies to emerge from that age was a privilege. And to see others that were going through a period of adjustment. Franklin Covey, which was formed out of the merger of Franklin Quest and Covey Leadership Center, and built on the principles of the great Stephen R. Covey, was going through a period of transition and put their Utah County campus, which was brand new in the Riverwoods, on the market. And to have the honor of representing them relative to the disposition of that 120,000 square foot campus, which was a significant assignment at that time, was an honor, and to build a team of people and a platform that could not only answer the call of business leaders that were looking for trusted advisory services to help them chart the course of their development, but also to elevate Utah in a way that would allow us to compete, to recruit companies that had previously overlooked Utah as a tertiary market. To see this market start to grow up and enter the national stage in a really powerful way, to be a part of that was quite exciting.
I bet.
And to work with these companies in the venture community and beyond, and to see their growth and to be a part of that, and to help them identify where they could save costs and where they can best position for success, and using real estate as a strength, as an asset, as opposed to a liability. Was something that drove me day in, day out. Not very balanced. So one of the challenges I've had in my career is I've been a workaholic and have not maintained very good balance.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of your emails come through at past midnight.
Yeah, I mean, I concluded my day yesterday at 3:30 a.m. At the office, meeting with executives late, working on getting emails and contracts out. I still struggle with that to this day. But I'm fortunate to have a career and a position in the community that I love, that is not just my vocation, but really my passion.
Yeah.
And the beautiful thing about commercial real estate that I learned as an 18-year-old is that if you apply yourself and you work to focus on relationships and building community, you can truly see a tangible manifestation of your labors on the skyline of the communities that you serve. To have the opportunity to structure the deals that are shaping the communities, that are providing places of work, play, places of commerce, and to have that kind of impact, to have a seat at the table, and to be able to look back on that and feel that sense of not only accomplishment, but the great satisfaction that comes from being a part of this incredible community, was not only rewarding from a young age, but has drove me in my career even to this day, and still provides the fuel that excites me on an hour-to-hour basis. I don't think there's another business on the planet that gives one a more physical manifestation of their labors. That is more impactful and allows one to actually work with such a diversity of businesses and people. The stories behind the great successes that we've seen come out of our market and really our world are truly inspiring. The stories of how these people were driven to innovate and to come up with a better mousetrap or better approach, regardless of industry, whether they're in the health and wellness industry or financial services or just working to develop a better consumer product. Commercial real estate is at the intersection of all of that, because you have to have the physical facilities and presence to be able to scale, to employ people, to collaborate, and ultimately succeed.
Absolutely. There's a lot to unpack there, and I agree completely. Having worked in commercial real estate for the past 6 years of my career, I've seen the importance of relationships, and as you mentioned, the transactions come and go, but building those relationships is the most pivotal part. And as I have left, JP Morgan and transitioned from different groups and now starting my own company, the relationships I formed, 5-6 years ago are all coming back into play. And so it's the importance of just keeping in touch with people and really just being trying to add value wherever you go in whatever capacity that is,
and putting self-interest aside.
Absolutely,
which can be challenging at times for a professional, for an independent contractor that is working on commission. It sometimes I think can compromise the focus and the process.
100%.
I've been very fortunate in that I was driven from the beginning by relationships and by the desire to work with the captains of industry and to have a seat at that table, as opposed to some preconceived monetary objective. I mean, the financial rewards come as a result of producing results and producing value. And as long as you focus on the relationship and looking out for the best interests of the client, regardless of whether the best decision may be to not do a deal. The best decision at times, the best advice I've given people at times has been to not transact business, to put a hold on everything, or to take a step back. Well, that's counterintuitive to the typical sales strategy that one would employ to discourage someone from from jumping at closing a deal, but I think it's really in service to building a long-term relationship that'll be enduring. And if people know that you are setting your self-interest aside in support of helping someone, regardless of what your own personal motivation may be or what you may be tempted to advise, is something that I think provides a longer-term path to success in business and in life.
Absolutely. Love that. So, okay, so you've built up Coldwell over 10 plus years.
Yeah, so in
11 offices.
1998, we launched. By 2003, we're the #1 commercial real estate firm in the state of Utah.
Nice.
We've had a huge impact. We have the largest office division, largest retail brokerage division. We sold those, of us who launched that first stage of growth, sold to a New York Stock Exchange enterprise that is now, it's called Realogy, which is the master franchisor for Coldwell Banker Commercial, Sotheby's, Century 21, ERA. They're a master operator and franchisor of real estate operations.
Got it.
And it was both an advantage to have their financial strength and their breadth and depth behind us, but it was also a challenge to be owned and operated by a publicly traded conglomerate based back in New Jersey. And even though there are benefits, we were able to acquire a number of other firms in order to build our platform and momentum in this market. Ultimately, by 2013, I elected to take the operation and the offices, the 3 offices that I had established and grown here in Utah, and took those private, spun those out of the publicly traded company and created Coldwell Banker Commercial Advisors, and embarked on a very ambitious national expansion strategy. I was hell-bent on restoring the legacy of Coldwell Banker Commercial and building a truly national commercial real estate firm while being headquartered in Salt Lake City. A key part of that expansion strategy was recruiting a CEO and executive leadership that would help me execute on that while I was simultaneously representing hundreds of projects dotting the entire Wasatch Front. That was quite a trick, and I went from probably working 16-hour days to 20-hour days during the week. One of the greatest transactions that I've closed in the last decade was convincing a gentleman named Lou Kramer to be my CEO. Lou was the president, the founding president of World Trade Center Utah, remarkable figure in both public and private sector circles, a champion of economic development, had spent 25 years in the Reagan and Bush White House in D.C. and was recruited by former Governor John Huntsman to lead not only the World Trade Center, but I think set the tone for economic development in Utah. And to have him join as CEO during that pivotal point in our development back in 2013, almost 10 years ago, was a big leap, and I think further put us on the map as the #1 commercial real estate firm here in not only Utah, but the Intermountain West. Having a team of people around me that could help execute on this business plan that would establish a platform that prioritized proprietary market intelligence and best-in-class service delivery to clients across all sectors was something that drove me into our expansion. And in about a 2.5-year period of time, we went from 3 offices in Utah to 30 offices in 11 states with 700 professionals.
Wow.
Over $4 billion in transaction volume as a company. And it was a great learning experience that I'll never forget.
I bet.
But by the time we entered 2018, I saw that there were major seismic shifts occurring globally within the commercial real estate space, and the day of being part of a network or a franchise operation had, in my view, had waned, and I felt it was important to be part of a global platform. And that led to my engagement with Colliers International, who is now one of the big three global players. I believe the fastest growing of the big three, established in 65 countries with 17,000 professionals and 5 offices. And in 2018, at the peak of growing Coldwell Banker Commercial and trying to figure out the next stage of development and growth and progression in not only my life, but also the life of my company. It was the right decision to make. So we ended up merging. I stayed on, of course, as chairman and co-owner, but we charted a course as a global platform as opposed to the fastest growing privately held commercial real estate franchisee in the country. A different focus, a different caliber of organization. It was like graduating from high school to the Ivy Leagues to a degree. I mean, we represent a good share of the Fortune 500, have the privilege of advising companies on a global basis like Adobe, eBay, Microsoft, Allstate Insurance, BAE, and on a local level, I think it allowed us to elevate our game that much more. In life, I believe no one is standing still. You're either taking steps backward or forward. And if you're not constantly looking to improve and sharpen the saw or reinvent the wheel, trying to figure out what you can do to improve and to innovate, you are going to be left in the dust. Since I was 18 years old, I have programmed myself every morning to wake up feeling unemployed, to know that I'm only as good as my next deal. And the most frightening days of my life have been those days following closing some of the largest landmark transactions in the market, which I think would surprise people to hear. They think, well, weren't you taking a vacation? Don't you feel a great sense of relief? And I say, absolutely not. The truth is I feel unemployed because I know I have to go right back out there and fill the pipeline. No one really cares what you did in the past. In this business, it is very unforgiving. People want to know what you're doing for them today, tomorrow, and what you're doing in order to progress and to get ahead of the curve. At a time when people are continually trying to determine what their path is post-pandemic, in a crazy world with volatile energy prices, rising interest rates, inflationary pressures, and recessionary fears, it is more important than ever to have a trusted advisor that can help chart the course for success and to be able to avoid the landmines as much as possible. And I think the progression that I've seen with my company and with my career has been a blessing. I've been able to adapt as we've lived through multiple recessions and economic cycles. There's one thing you can always plan on is change. Change is a constant. It isn't a matter of if we're going to see great economic change and shifts. It's when. And no one can time that with any precision. If I could time it with precision, I wouldn't be sitting here. I'd probably have my own private islands out in the Pacific Ocean and my own empire out there. I would be in a different position if I could truly have a crystal ball with accuracy. But I think knowing how to chart the course and to be able to duck and roll, to pivot in the face of change and challenge, and to identify opportunities that are born out of a challenging market. When I started my career in 91, we were coming out of the S&L crisis, the savings and loan debacle, and high interest rates and an economy that was in transition. I at first felt was a great handicap. It was a challenging time to jump into commercial real estate.
Yeah.
I learned later, in retrospect, that it was an amazing time to jump in. You're jumping into the fire, into the refiner's fire, if you will.
Right. And that's how. So with Park West, I mean, we started the company 2 months ago, and we are entering in a very turbulent time in the market.
Yeah.
And part of me is like, well, is this the wrong time to be doing this? But more of me is saying, well, where there is trouble, there's opportunity. And if you look at some of the greatest, apartment owners or real estate shops, a lot of them started during recessions.
Yeah.
And that those times where it's a classic, buy low and sell high. And we got to be very careful about how we approach things in this market. But I think there's more opportunity than not. And I'd love to get your thoughts, Brandon, kind of on the market today, specifically in the real estate market. How do you think things like inflation, interest rate hikes, what are you seeing in the market with your tenants and feedback that you're getting from other groups? How do you think we kind of get through the next year or two?
Well, first, congrats and condolences on launching your enterprise.
Thank you.
During this period of time.
Yeah.
It is a time of great change.
Yeah.
But you have certain sectors within the market that are stronger than ever. I've never seen an industrial market that has been stronger than what we are witnessing today. To see 1% vacancy was unheard of in any realm, in any market for that matter, from coast to coast. And you have here in Utah 1% to 2% vacancy depending on the quarter in industrial.
Yeah.
Multifamily continues to be red hot as communities grapple with growth and how to manage that growth, how to employ a smart growth strategy and an approach to density, and changing habits. We've shifted from an ownership generation where ownership of homes to cars is, to this generation, the new emerging generation, not a priority. I think quality of life, flexibility, adaptability is important. I mean, it's the rental generation as evidenced by the rise of Airbnb and others, and Uber. You take a look at how much disruption that we've seen within those sectors, and I think we're just getting started. The world of autonomous vehicles is, I think, right in the immediate future, and the technology exists to transform our transportation infrastructure in ways that I think people are a bit unprepared for. But as you're launching your enterprise, I think that you've done a very good job in short order of identifying those sectors that not only provide strength and value, but are to a degree resilient and are buffered from some of the cyclical risk. No one is immune. Everyone and every sector is going to be subject to change. But I think being able to appropriately calibrate one's business strategy and the advice you're giving and really the fund that you're building to anticipate the shifts and to be able to, in a quick and nimble fashion, take advantage of those shifts. The scariest time is when a market is paralyzed. There's nothing more terrifying than when everyone stops. When people are not transacting, but as long as they are buying and selling and shifting, there is opportunity to create value and to take advantage of value creation. The pandemic was terrifying, I think, in the way that for the first time in history, people were forced to not go into the office. And
which is crazy.
To adapt. Businesses were shuttered. There are thousands of restaurants and mom and pop shops, retailers that will never recover, that will never come back as a result of a black swan event that we're still trying to figure out, and we're still trying to, I think, react to. Looking back over the course of the last several years, the patterns that shaped the way people work, the way people engage in their community have been changed, perhaps forever. You break those patterns, many of which were established during the Industrial Revolution and post-World War II, and there are going to be some challenges. And there will be some negative impacts, and there will also be positive opportunities that come as a result of the technology and the innovation that was born out of adapting to a new environment.
It was very interesting to see the complete shutdown when COVID first hit back in the spring of 2020, and then the acceleration of, specifically multifamily, industrial, and to see the growth over the last 2 years, both in rent growth, compression of cap rates, demand, acceleration of e-commerce, and people bunkering down in their apartments, and that demand skyrocketing. I think we're at a point now that's very interesting. And you mentioned transactions stopping. The Fed is meeting today again, probably hike rates 75 to 100 basis points. But we have a couple deals under contract. And the large equity players, the LP institutional capital of the world, a lot of them are on the sidelines right now. And there are lenders who are also being very conservative in their underwriting. But I don't think we've gotten to a point where transactions have stopped. I think a lot of groups are being more and more careful. So it's a bit of a double-edged sword.
Well, how do you underwrite deals in an environment where interest rates are triple what they were just a short time ago, where energy prices are still at record highs to a degree, and where you have construction costs that are also at an all-time high? The ability to underwrite those projects,
it's extremely difficult right now. It's a black box.
I have great sympathy for the development community right now, because even in the hottest product types, you mentioned industrial and multifamily, we're grappling now with not only elevated land costs and construction costs, but debt service.
Totally. And cap rates have people don't know where cap rates are. People are assuming they've come up 100 to 200 basis points as the Fed has raised rates, but it is very challenging. We were underwriting a 10-acre site up in Salt Lake just yesterday, and there's still a very big disconnect, I think, right now between land sellers' expectations and where buyers need to be on price. Because rates have come up, because expectations for exit cap rates and everything that's happened, I think there's a disconnect where sellers and buyers are not of the same mind. And so it'll be interesting to see over the next few months if that disconnect, can be satisfied and transactions start occurring more and more. But it is an interesting time, and it'll be interesting to see how we get through it.
In some ways, it scares the hell out of me. Because something has to give. I
don't know what it is yet.
But we'll see how the market adapts. If there's anything that we've learned from history, people are very, very creative, and they're able to adapt to changes in the economic environment. And I think we're going to see that continue, especially in Utah. I mean, Utah is a unique place in that we have unmatched public-private engagement. We have an entrepreneurial spirit that is alive and well. That was, to a degree, I think, triggered during the pioneer movement. The pioneers settling here in 1847, and having that sense of community, building community from the ground up and bootstrapping. We see that alive and well and in the DNA, both literally and figuratively, of these communities.
I agree.
The people that we have the privilege of interacting with. And that's exciting. I think people underestimate how powerful this market is, and how much we've grown from not only being a tertiary to a secondary market, but really the crossroads of the world as opposed to just the crossroads of the West.
Yeah, that's a good point.
How we lead out and what we do in order to, I think, provide a window into best practices and being able to adapt to change and a new economy is going to be critical.
Yeah. And you touched on the market, and I think for operators and developers and sponsors, as a way to combat the uncertainty, it's really focusing on fundamentals of submarkets and markets that are strong, economic growth, job growth, and have a pathway and a trajectory that even if we are in a bumpy road for the next couple of years, is it a place you want to own for the next 5 to 7 years in your business plan? And Utah certainly is one of those places, and we're heavily focused on the state of Utah, as well as other markets in Texas that have similar trajectories. So,
sure, and they're business friendly.
And business friendly.
They're not punitive.
Absolutely.
They're not trying to punish entrepreneurs.
Totally.
I'm very disappointed with some of the political wins right now, and the lack of support for free capitalism. I think a free capitalistic society is key to success and is the bedrock foundation of our economy. And I hope that people have the courage to lead, to shout down a lot of those crazy voices that would, I think, seek to undermine the incentives that drive economic growth. I mean, our economy, our world is really driven by people being incentivized by risk and reward. Yeah. And you take away the reward, or you penalize those who are willing to take risk. I mean, it's not good.
No, it's not good. It's a good way to de-incentivize somebody from helping the economy and growing the market. So
yeah, I it's
disincentivize. Yeah,
it's a challenging time. I hope that our public officials rise to the occasion and are able to preserve the framework that has helped to build our economy and build the United States into a global superpower. I mean, right now we are facing incredible competition from China. You look at the incredible leaps that they've taken in not only the space race of recent, but also artificial intelligence. They steal our technology shamelessly. They rip us off, and they figure out how to go to market and to replicate, that which we're trying to develop. And I think I'm getting off on a bit of a tangent, but I think we have to protect the integrity of our economic structure.
Yeah.
And I think that starts by focusing on empowering people and providing the way for entrepreneurs to succeed, to keep the American dream alive. My family came originally from Denmark. They were converts to the LDS faith back in the 1860s and came here penniless in wagons across the plains, and were able to take advantage of the American dream.
That's great.
And to be able to see something built from the sweat and toil of their labors. Yeah. I think preserving the ability for people, regardless of whether they're immigrants or whatever their station in life, being able to help them have the ability to succeed, and providing that support is going to be key. And all I see right now are obstacles and bureaucratic nonsense that seems to be more pervasive than ever.
Yeah. Well, I know we've got midterm elections coming up, so let's get out there.
Yeah, well, I hope people are not apathetic. I think people need to stand up and not be so passive, not be so milquetoast about the future. Yeah. We need leadership that is willing to call out the uncomfortable truths and also the challenges and come up with real world solutions. Yeah. Not just a bunch of meaningless platitudes.
Yeah, agreed. Well, shifting gears a little bit, just a couple other things I want to cover, Brandon. So you are the co-star and executive producer of a very popular show right now, Secret of Skinwalker Ranch. So tell us about that. I mean, I've watched the first season. I need to get caught up on Netflix.
Well, season 2 and 3 are even better. So you've seen the foundational episodes of really a true record of our scientific investigation. Skinwalker Ranch, which I acquired in 2016, is, I believe, unquestionably the most scientifically studied paranormal hotspot on the planet. It is the most unique real estate project, if you will, of all time. People are quite curious as to how I fell down the rabbit hole. And acquired this property, and it was through some science advisors that were involved with a venture that I was involved in 12 years ago. They were advising a gentleman named Robert Bigelow, who is an entrepreneur, an aerospace magnate in North Las Vegas. Made his money in real estate. Is most notably the developer of the Budget Suites of America extended hotel chain, and has leveraged his success and his wealth to enter the private space race, and has been positioning to be the real estate developer of space. Bought the Space Habitats program, or the inflatables program, from NASA a number of years ago, and in tandem with that had been funding a research project on a 500-acre piece of property in northeastern Utah, outside of Vernal. And a lot of people now have learned that this project, this 500-acre piece of property, caught the attention of the Pentagon and the government as a place that was seeing the highest frequency of not only UFO sightings, but bizarre cattle mutilations, electromagnetic anomalies. And Mr. Bigelow, brought a team of experts to investigate that as part of a government-funded endeavor. And that project concluded back in 2013 and paved the way for introductions to be made and for me to acquire the property. I bought the property as a skeptic. I had never seen a UFO, a ghost, or an orb. And I believed that there was a natural, prosaic explanation for what had been reported for decades, if not millennia, on this property. I believed that it was most likely nothing more than an adult scientific snipe hunt. I don't know if you were ever in scouting growing up, but in scouting, you'd take the younger scouts out, and by the end of the night, you'd have everyone convinced that they were hunting and hearing a snipe, some elusive animal there in the brush. And I think the mind is a powerful thing. It is. The power of imagination and the human mind to conjure up, to think that you're seeing things or experiencing things that aren't necessarily real is something you have to guard against. And I felt that was probably the most likely thing that had been happening.
Logical.
And so I brought in my own team of scientists and experts to essentially debunk the property, to prove that there was a natural explanation. And there really wasn't anything more to this very strikingly beautiful landscape than just an interesting history. And there is this mesa plateau that spans the property that has cave systems. We have 3 clusters of old pioneer homesteads that have been standing there, and in a couple of cases are barely standing, and waterways that bisect the property. And it is a surprisingly diverse landscape that has this incredible rich history. It derives its name, Skinwalker Ranch, from the Skinwalker curse, the apparent curse that had been placed on the property by the Navajo tribe back in the 1800s, when there was a falling out with the Ute tribe and the federal government. And the demonic shape-shifting entities that are known as skinwalkers in Native American lore were said to have been cursed to roam this property. And so it has not only an interesting cultural history, but also in recent decades has been the site of more UFO sightings and other strange activity that we have been studying on a very engaged level. I bought it secretly, never intending to reveal my identity as the owner. I had no desire
Oh, I didn't know that.
to ever reveal that I was the owner of this property, had everyone sign confidentiality agreements and liability waivers.
Really?
And I really didn't want to bring in television cameras or open this up to any scrutiny. It was just my private science endeavor.
Yeah.
And for a period of time, for a number of years, it continued on that path until producers from the History Channel reached out to me mercilessly, following up every week. In fact, I was receiving calls through my people, my intermediaries, my managers were receiving calls every week from producers wanting to have an audience with whoever the secret owner of this enigmatic piece of property was. And I finally reluctantly took a meeting that led to a discussion where I said, look, if I'm willing to open up the gates of this property and give the public a very dynamic view of what I believe to be the most exciting science project of our time, delving into frontier physics and other topics, I want it to be based in fact. Nothing can be fabricated, contrived, or manipulated. You have to use my core team. There is no Hollywood casting call. You know, you're going to work with my trusted multidisciplinary team that I brought together to tackle this property, and the rest is history. And they agreed to grant that. They would not grant me anonymity, though. They said in order to actually accurately portray what was truly happening,
you got to be on
that I needed to come forward. And it was a daunting decision, and one that was very sobering. I like to say I was Jedi mind tricked into doing it and persuaded. And looking back, I don't think I would have ever imagined how much it would change my life.
Sure.
But in this case, truth is stranger than fiction. Not only have I turned from being a skeptic to not only a believer, but an experiencer. I know these things. I've seen phenomena that defies all, at least current explanation that we have, but also the opportunity to delve into topics that really, I think, address those age-old questions of really the nature of our reality. Are we alone in the universe? Where did we come from? Why are we here? How did we get here? Where are we going? Do we have other dimensions of reality that sit alongside ours that we have the ability to interact with? I mean, anyone who believes in a spiritual realm, or that life exists after death, that our consciousness, our souls, our spirits, whatever label you want to put on it, anyone who believes that doesn't end here, that continues, believes in a multidimensional reality, in my view.
Sure.
And I think the ability to use empiricism to have a living laboratory that, for whatever reason, is a hotbed of activity where the veil between this world and other worlds is thin, it's a great privilege. It's the X-Files for real. It's Stranger Things. For real.
For real.
And I'm telling you, it's 100% true, and it is baffling. It is something that I never ever anticipated.
You're making me want to go watch the show tonight. I'm going to get my wife on board.
Well,
let's check out season 2 and 3.
It's quite an adventure, and it's an opportunity to work with people from so many fields, not only science, but also to bring in other enthusiasts and experts. I catch a little bit of flack. We recently had everyone from Post Malone.
I remember seeing
Billboard, Billboard Artist of the Year 2 years in a row.
That's awesome.
Who is very much interested in these topics. To most recently, Trent Reznor of 9 Inch Nails. Trent Reznor, who I believe is the most brilliant producer, composer of our time. I mean, he's moved into television and movie film scores. and is just a rock and roll icon, is a cultural and music icon, came out for a briefing, and to show him the unique audio anomalies and frequency anomalies that are occurring in tandem with some of this high strangeness, and to get his perspective and his look at this has been a great opportunity.
That's great.
It's so much more than just a very strange real estate project. It's something that I think is inspiring generations to hopefully expand their horizons, their worldview. I've never taken a penny personally relative to the television endeavor. And really? I've never monetized this ranch in that way. In fact, I've never opened a checking account for my entity that holds the ranch. All of those proceeds have been donated or assigned to other purposes because I really see this as I guess you could say a philanthropic or a true science discovery effort.
Yeah, I think that's a really cool way to look at it. Since you acquired the land and the show has come to be, have you received interest from people who want to buy the land or?
Sure.
Or
yeah, there's a lot of interest. I've had unsolicited interest in purchasing. I have no interest in ever selling it.
Really?
People ask me all the time, well, is the federal government involved? And the truth is we have been in a position to brief certain committees in Washington, D.C. We were summoned several years ago to D.C. to provide testimony and a report, a briefing to individuals that are interested within the defense and intelligence community. I think the fact that our airspace is being violated indiscriminately, or at least we're seeing exotic craft of unknown origin or agenda, is something that people should have an interest in. I'm surprised that it is not taken more seriously, or at least more top of mind in a lot of circles. But I think we are ambitiously funding this effort. I've been putting my own significant capital behind the instrumentation and the scientific platforms to better document and understand the nature of what we're dealing with. We have over 40 surveillance cameras, night vision, thermographic imaging. We have a state-of-the-art FLIR camera system. We also have a weather system, infrasonic sensors. We have avionics receiving platforms that are tracking all of the private and commercial air traffic, so we can distinguish between that which may be mundane or just typical and that which may be exotic or unusual. And we've brought in third-party experts in the field of everything from advanced photogrammetry to ground-penetrating radar to environmental testing to drone surveying to help us better document and understand what we are dealing with. Wow,
that's fascinating. I love it. Very, very interesting stuff, Brandon. Well, this has been great, and I've really enjoyed having you on. The last thing I ask guests on the show, because this is kind of an entrepreneurial focus show or business owner focus show, I guess what advice would you give to somebody who wants to start their own business but has hesitated for whatever reason that may be, whether fear or lack of money, or confidence? I guess what would you say to that individual who wants to make that journey?
Don't be afraid to fail. My first years in the business and even my days today are riddled with failures and with challenges. Don't be afraid to fail. Also, whatever path you choose, it doesn't matter what your career path is, work to develop unique expertise. Become a subject matter expert in that field. The great shipping magnate of old, his name was Aristotle Onassis. He married Jackie Kennedy. Was quite a business leader decades ago. Said the secret to success in business is to know something that nobody else knows. That sounds very trite and simple, but it's true.
Absolutely.
You know, my favorite movie in high school was Wall Street with Michael Douglas. And I don't know if you've seen that movie.
I haven't seen it, but I need to.
Well,
I've heard it's a classic.
You're fired.
I should be.
You can't be in business without seeing Wall Street, Jerry Maguire, and Karate Kid. Those are 3 required movies.
Okay, I gotta get on it.
That I force my team to watch because they
awesome.
they have incredibly powerful lessons. And in Wall Street, Michael Douglas's character is Gordon Gekko. On Wall Street says, the most powerful commodity I know of is information. To the degree you can develop proprietary intelligence that you can leverage, that you can utilize in service to helping people create success, cost savings, build wealth, you're going to do well. And at the end of the day, it really is all about relationships. It's about treating people with kindness, with respect, with a sense of urgency, regardless of what stage of growth or station in life they may be. The golden rule, I think, is the most important principle in life and in business. Treat others as you want to be treated.
Yeah.
And as long as you keep that in mind in your interactions daily, I think you're going to succeed. And success is different for everyone. Sometimes success isn't measured by money.
What is it for you?
Wealth. Success for me in my career has been measured by market domination, by the ability to lead a market, to be able to have a powerful impact on the communities we serve. But I think beyond that, I think the privilege of being a trusted advisor and a confidant to not only the leaders of the past, but those who will lead us into the future is something that drives me and is exciting.
That's great.
And welcome to the future, Chase Hudson. You are the future, and I applaud your entrepreneurial spirit.
Thank you.
Congratulations, you are an entrepreneur and starting your venture and using real estate as the vehicle for your journey. But I applaud your efforts, and it'll be fun. It's been fun to interact with you transactionally as we've worked on countless office buildings and commercial real estate transactions, and to see you take that experience, your education, and that experience to create something.
Yeah, I appreciate that. We're really excited, and I want to thank you again for coming on. There's so much more I feel like we could dive into, but because of time, we'll have to do it on the next one. But
you got it.
Thanks, Brandon. Appreciate your time.
All right, no mercy. Awesome. Sweep the leg.
Thank you.